a lot of people are trying to gather more information, thinking like knowledge is power. I need to know more, learn more, get more strategies, more tips, more stuff. And true wisdom is not accumulation. It's not just accumulating more. True wisdom is actually elimination. It's eliminating all the crap that you don't need and just focusing on the few basic things that are going to make a difference for you at this stage of the game, in your situation, and not getting bombarded with all the contradictory crap that's out there.
Welcome to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Podcast with Lee Hayward and Jeff Samataro. Since 1997, Lee Hayward's Total Fitness Bodybuilding has been online helping guys to build muscle, lose fat, and become the best version of themselves. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with real-world practical fitness and nutrition advice to look your best, improve your health, and feel confident in your own skin so you can live life to the fullest without having your body holding you back from doing the things you want to do. So if you're ready to get started, let's jump into the show.
Welcome to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Podcast. My name is Lee Hayward, and today I'm doing a solo episode because my co-host, Jeff Samataro, he's currently in the transition now of moving from New Hampshire to California. And while he's in that transition, I'm going to be doing a couple solo episodes to bridge the gap. But nonetheless, I've got a good one in store for you today because we're going to dive into the top 5 mistakes that are sabotaging your fat loss progress and cover some real-world action steps that you can take to make sure that you don't make these mistakes and to ensure that you're on the right track to reaching your fitness and fat loss goals. And a lot of people that I work with, the main goal is fat loss. Now, it's usually a combination of losing fat and building muscle, i.e. a body recomposition. But for most of the guys that I work with, most of the guys who go through the Muscle After 40 Blueprint program, one of the primary goals for sure is losing fat, right? They want to trim off that stubborn belly fat. They want to improve their overall health and fitness and longevity, increase their energy, feel better about themselves, feel more confident in their own skin, be able to take their shirt off without feeling embarrassed about having a layer of body fat covering your over. But they also want to fill out their frame with lean muscle and improve their strength and energy as well. So we really focus on the total body recomposition. But today we're going to dive into 5 mistakes that people make when it comes to losing body fat. And the first mistake that I see from most people is the all or nothing trap. Now, this is the common scenario I see is people will ignore their fitness for weeks or months, or in some cases, even years. You know, they just let themselves go. And in the back of their mind, they're probably like, yeah, I know I shouldn't do this. I know I should work out. I know I should eat right. Yeah, but just not right now. Now is not a good time. I'll get around to it later. And they keep procrastinating. So doing nothing. But then something happens, right? Whatever it is. Maybe they have a health scare. You know, the doctor says, hey, you're pre-diabetic, you know, you're borderline diabetic, you got to make a change. Or maybe their blood pressure goes through the roof. Or maybe they had a death in the family and they had a wake-up call and realize, you know, hey, I got to make a change or else I'm going to go down that road as well. Something happens. Or maybe there's some motivation like, hey, I got a beach vacation coming up and I'm fat and out of shape and I don't want to be on the beach and have to take my shirt off and be embarrassed. Like something happens, right? Something happens that spurs you on to make a change. And once that motivation hits, then all of a sudden it's like this mad rush to get in shape. So I've been ignoring my health and fitness for weeks and months and years. And now once I finally decide I'm going to start that workout, I'm going to start that diet, I'm going to get in shape, then you got to do it as fast as humanly possible, right? It has to be this mad rush. And then people very often jump into all kinds of crazy extreme programs, you know, crash diets, extreme workouts, and try and burn the candle at both ends so that they can get in shape as fast as possible. And I just want you to kind of take a step back, take a deep breath, and ask, what's the rush, right? You've been neglecting this for God knows how long. Why the rush to get in shape all of a sudden? And very often when you rush things, you make stupid mistakes. So the thing that I want to really drive home here is when it comes time to improving your health and fitness, and now is a good time, like start sooner than later, right? Start now, but don't try and overhaul everything from day one. Just try to be better than you were before, or be consistently good versus occasionally great, right? This good enough and good enough consistently approach. And this is one of the key concepts that I keep hammering home within our Muscle After 40 Blueprint coaching program. Because even guys who are going through the program, they keep falling into the all or nothing trap. And then when they do go all in, they usually go too deep and end up burning themselves out, getting injured, pushing themselves beyond their means. And this very often leads to injury and setback, and then you can't be consistent. An analogy that I like to share here is the whole idea of slow is fast. And this is a phrase that they use in the racing world. Now, one of my hobbies that I've done in the past is some amateur race car driving. So I've done rally racing, I've done autocross racing, I've done some track racing, and I've done 9 high-performance race car driving schools. Right? I did that down at Spring Mountain Motorsports in Nevada. And one of the key things that they drive home right from the start is slow is fast. And what they mean by this is a lot of times when you get, a hot shot thinks that he knows how to drive a car and he gets out there, he tries to hammer it right from the get-go. And anybody can hammer it on the straightaway. Like, it doesn't take much skill or intelligence to put your foot to the floor on the straightaway. That's easy. But how do you handle the car in the technical sections, through the turns, and how do you handle all the technical sections? And very often what ends up happening for most guys is they drive the slow parts too fast and then the fast parts too slow. So one of the things that they really try and emphasize in a race car school is they want you to slow down your actions and really think it through. And very often when people slow it down and they're not trying to rush the process, they actually go faster because they're not making stupid mistakes in the process. And I want you to take that same analogy with your fitness. Instead of trying to rush into some hardcore workout program and push yourself beyond your means, or rush your diet and just drastically cut calories to extremely low levels and think that I'm going to speed up the process because I'm going to amp everything up and go from 0 to hero overnight, just focus on being better than you were before. Focus on making gradual progress and just dialing up a notch, just a little better, instead of trying to go all in from the get-go. And this is a more sustainable approach. It's a lot more enjoyable. And very often it actually leads to faster progress in the big picture. So avoiding the all or nothing trap is a big one for sure. And we want to focus on being good enough, but good enough consistently. And this one also leads into the second mistake that a lot of people make. And that is the whole paralysis by analysis thing. And this is very often why people end up doing nothing, is because they get stuck in paralysis by analysis. And basically the whole idea behind this is you're overthinking, you're overanalyzing, you want to have the perfect program before you even get started, and you're making what should be a very small and simple task, but a lot of times people overanalyze it. And then when you think too much and you get information overload, very often you don't do anything. And, the confused mind says no. Confused mind does nothing. Whereas we want to simplify the process and start taking some basic action steps. So there's a few reasons why people get caught up in the whole paralysis by analysis. One, of course, is the internet, right? I mean, it's like a double-edged sword. It's good and it's bad. Like, I'm almost grateful that I started my training back before the internet, right? I mean, that sounds like dinosaur age now when you're talking about it. But when I started working out, we had books and magazines and VHS tapes and actual people that you talk to in the gym, trainers and coaches and other athletes or bodybuilders and people who you learn from. But information came at a much slower and more absorbable rate. So you didn't get bombarded with a million different diet plans and a million different workout programs and all this contradictory crap. It came at a much slower pace. And one of the things that I like to acknowledge here is a lot of people are trying to gather more information, thinking like knowledge is power. I need to know more, learn more, get more strategies, more tips, more stuff. And true wisdom is not accumulation. It's not just accumulating more. True wisdom is actually elimination. It's eliminating all the crap that you don't need and just focusing on the few basic things that are going to make a difference for you at this stage of the game, in your situation, and not getting bombarded with all the contradictory crap that's out there. And one of the things that I really want you to focus on is think of what's your main priority, like what's applicable for you. And it will vary from person to person. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, if we have let's just say we got a young guy, maybe he's in his late teens, early 20s, really trying to fill out his frame, bulk up, add some meat to his bones. That's a different approach versus if we have a 50-year-old office worker who's overweight, out of shape, hasn't exercised in the last 20 years, and now he wants to lower his blood pressure, get his weight under control, improve his blood sugar, and live a long, healthy life so he can be around to see his kids grow up and see his grandchildren. Like, that's a different approach versus the young guy who's trying to bulk up and fill out his frame. It's not that one is right or wrong, good or bad, but it's two totally different scenarios, and it requires two totally different approaches to fitness and nutrition. And where we can very often get overwhelmed with information is you start looking up YouTube videos and following fitness influencers and different programs, and they may have an excellent program for one specific person or one specific demographic. Maybe it is the young guys who are trying to bulk up. And it might be ideal in that situation, but if that's not you, then that's not who you should be following, or that's not the program you should be following. Vice versa, the program that's geared for, say, someone who's in their 40s or 50s and beyond, overweight, out of shape, and wants to get back in shape again and get control over their health and fitness, and do so while managing that work-life balance, raising a family, and having a lot of responsibilities on their plate. The program that's ideal for that person isn't necessarily going to help the 20-something-year-old bulk up and fill out his frame as rapidly as possible. So again, it's not right or wrong, good or bad. It's just different programs based on different scenarios. And a lot of times people get confused by this is because you're following fitness influencers and information online, and it may be good information, but it might not be applicable to you in your situation. Another reason why people often get paralysis by analysis is the fear of making the wrong decision. So kind of going back to what I was talking about here, people are worried about, I want to have the perfect program and the perfect diet and everything else. And I don't want to make a mistake. So I'd rather not do anything than make a mistake, right? And I'm going to tell you right up front, doing nothing is a mistake. So if you're afraid of making a mistake or making the wrong decision, so you choose to make no decision, you've already made your mistake. You're much better off trying something and even having it be the wrong program, because at least then you've learned from the experience and you've got something to build on. At least you got the momentum moving, and you can always course correct and change your approach as you go. But the hardest part is just getting started. And a lot of times people procrastinate starting because they don't want to make the wrong decision. And one of the things that my coach always drills into me is give yourself permission to take imperfect action. Like, don't overthink it. Don't overanalyze it. Don't procrastinate because you're afraid you might make a mistake or whatever. Jump in and figure it out as you go. Like, if you make a mistake, that's actually good, because now you can learn from that mistake through real world experience and course correct and then improve in the future. Versus if you take no action because you're afraid of making a mistake, then nothing changes, nothing improves. You just stay stuck in a rut, right? You're in a perpetual plateau because of inaction. I would much rather someone take wrong action and learn from it and course correct versus taking no action and just staying stuck in a rut. Another one that we see a lot is people are always trying to search for the best program, the best option, searching for that red shiny object, if you will, the red shiny ball, thinking that, the grass is always greener on the other side. So maybe they do jump in and start with a particular program. Maybe it's a workout program or a nutrition plan or whatever it is. And maybe it's working. Maybe they're seeing some progress, but they're always thinking, well, what if there's a better program? Or, hey, I just seen this YouTube video from such and such a fitness influencer. Or, hey, this post came up in my social media, Facebook feed or my Instagram feed or whatever. And all of a sudden people think, oh, maybe I should scrap what I'm doing and jump on board with this other program instead, because I think this one will probably get me faster results. But it's not always that, hey, one program is better than another, or, this one versus that one. Like, we see this all the time now. And the crazy thing is they're contradictory programs and contradictory opinions. Like, when it comes to fat loss, we got vegans on one side who are saying, hey, follow a plant-based diet. It's the best thing for your health and fitness and fat loss and yada, yada, yada. And then on the complete opposite spectrum, you have carnivores who are saying, hey, don't eat plants, just eat meat. It's the best thing for your health and fitness and fat loss. And two of them completely opposing opinions. And two of them are convinced that if you do the other, you're going to end up being a massive failure and you're going to ruin your health and fitness and you're going to die. That's as extreme as it is. Like, the vegans say, hey, if you eat a piece of meat, you're going to ruin your health and you're going to die. The carnivores are saying, hey, if you eat a plant, you're going to ruin your health and fitness and you're going to die. Like, they have these contradictory opinions, and it's like chalk and cheese. Now, what we want to do in those situations is kind of look at the bigger picture and say, what do these programs have in common, and how can we implement those commonalities? Like, one thing that a successful vegan program has in common and a successful carnivore program has in common is it's eliminating processed foods. It's very often eliminating the crap that we don't need to begin with. So, how about we start with that? How about we just start by eliminating some of the crap? Like, if you're eating a vegan diet, then okay, you're probably not eating a lot of processed stuff like ice cream and hot dogs and pizza and crap like that. Same thing from the carnivore side of things, because they're looking at it from another perspective, saying, well, hey, if you're eating ice cream, the sugar and all that stuff is not going to fit with a carnivore diet because it's not meat based. So obviously we want to eliminate that. They're looking at hamburgers and hot dogs and cookies and cake and pizza. They're saying, oh, you want to eliminate all that, the breads and the grains and the sauces and stuff like that because it's not meat. But what's the commonality? They're eliminating the processed food. And very often, just in eliminating that processed food, people improve their digestion, improve their health, improve their fitness. But I don't think the benefit of a plant-based diet is the lack of meat. And I don't think the benefit of a carnivore diet is the lack of vegetables. I think it's the lack of processed food, for one, but combining those to get the best of both worlds. Having a healthy diet based around natural, unprocessed vegetables, natural, unprocessed meats, and having this healthy, well-balanced approach. And that's what I personally follow, and that's what I personally have my coaching students follow. And it's amazing how well that works. So I'm not a fan of these extremist approaches, but I am a fan of a well-balanced, healthy, sustainable approach. And that's another thing we got to factor in here as well is the approach you're following something that you can sustain as a lifestyle, not just something that you're going to suffer through in the short term. And this brings me up to the third mistake that I see a lot of people making, and that's trying to optimize what isn't standardized. And the big thing you need to wrap your head around right from the start is you're not going to get in shape with some short-term program, like a 30-day shred or some 12-week transformation or any other quick fix plan. Like, if your fitness and fat loss program has a start and an end date, the results are only temporary, right? You need to look at this as a lifestyle change. I mean, there is no finish line, there is no end date. It's just a never-ending process of making daily improvement for the rest of your life. And the good news is it doesn't have to be perfect to get started, right? You just have to start where you're at. Start with just being better than you were before. And very often the first steps can be so simple that most people don't even think that they're worthwhile. I mean, they almost discredit it because it's so simple. I mean, we just need to kind of lay some basic habits, some basic fundamental routines into your day-to-day life. It doesn't have to be this big, massive overhaul. So, for example, instead of worrying about like, hey, what's the best workout program? What's the best training split? Like, how do I break up my body parts? What's the best set and rep pattern? What's the best exercise tempo? And, what should my rate of perceived exertion should be? And how close should I train to failure? And blah, 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 blah. And all these, you're muddling and get tangled up in the weeds. Or same when it comes to nutrition, you're nitpicking over, hey, what should my calories and my macros and all this be? And what should my meal timing be? And hey, should I carb cycle and, worry about this? And what supplements should I take? And when should I take those supplements? And like, let's just focus on being better than you were before, right? That's it. So first off, like when it comes to the workouts, are you even working out right now? If not, well, okay, let's start. let's just schedule some time in the day when you're actually going to show up to the gym. I mean, whether that's first thing in the morning, whether that's on your lunch break, whether it's right after work, but you need to look at your schedule and say, like, when can I realistically commit to doing some daily exercise? And put that in the calendar. Put that in and schedule it in just like you would an important meeting, whether that's a work meeting, whether that's a doctor's appointment or something along those lines. Like, when you have these important appointments, you schedule them into your calendar and then you work everything around those appointments. The same has to be done with your workouts. You schedule that in first and then work the rest of your life around it. So let's just say you decide that, hey, first thing in the morning, I can go to the gym. So I get up extra early, I get to the gym, get my workout done, and then it's done, it's in the bank, and then I can carry on with the rest of my day, but I have the workout done. right? If that works for you, great. Now, I know some people, you maybe have a really early shift, like maybe you got to be at work for 6 a.m. or something like that. So it's not really practical for you to try and get a workout done first thing in the morning. Maybe you can do it on your lunch break. Like maybe you got a lunch hour and you say, well, you know what, there's a gym not too far from my work, or maybe you work in a place that actually has a gym. Like one of my coaching students that I was working with, they actually had a fitness center at their place of work, but he didn't take advantage of it because he said, well, I only got an hour for lunch. What can I do in an hour? Blah, blah, blah. It's not worth it. And I say, you have this time every single day. Okay, we're not going to do the whole lunch hour, but let's take half an hour and do a half an hour workout on your lunch break, right? That still gives you time to get cleaned up and have something to eat before you got to go back to work afterwards. So we did that, and we actually structured a workout routine, taking advantage of his lunch break. Maybe you can do something similar, or maybe you do it right after work. I mean, that's what a lot of people do. They schedule their workouts right after work and get it done. But whenever it is that you do it, it doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong here. It's just, when is it going to fit your schedule, and when can you commit to doing that? That's the first step. Schedule it in. Schedule it in advance. Make it a non-negotiable. Right. Once it's done, then we can always optimize it and tweak, the exercises and the training split and all the different variables. But the first step is you have to standardize it. You have to have that in your calendar as a non-negotiable and commit to it, right? Because I'll work out when I have time, or when I'm not busy, and when everything else is done, then I'll get around to that workout. No, it's never going to happen. There's always going to be something coming up, right? It's not like we just have this big void in time all of a sudden. Right? If you're retired, maybe you do have some voids in time, but if you're busy and you got a family and a career and kids and yada, 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 I mean, there's always something on your calendar. So you have to take the bull by the horns and put it in your calendar, and then schedule everything else around it, right? Just the same as you would an important appointment for anything, whether it's a work appointment, doctor's appointment, family appointment, schedule it in advance. And we can take a similar approach when it comes to your nutrition as well. Like a lot of times people are nitpicking over, their diet and saying like, okay, what's the best macro split, and what's the best this, and what's the best that, and when should I eat my meals, and should I intermittent fast, should I have 6 meals a day, how much protein, how much carbs, what's the best split, blah 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 blah. Or there's nitpicking about all the stuff that they have to avoid, like, oh, I got to avoid carbs, and I got to avoid this, and I got to avoid that, and I got to cut this and cut that. One of the strategies I like to use with my coaching students to get the ball rolling and to build some positive momentum is to take a reverse psychology approach to nutrition. So instead of obsessing over all the bad things that you have to fix, let's focus on some good things that you need to add in. Like, how about we just add an extra serving of protein with your main meals? How about we add an extra serving of vegetables? How about we drink more water? We just focus on all these good habits that we already know we should be doing, but we make sure that we're actually doing them consistently. Focus on adding in the good. And by doing so, you'll naturally squeeze out some of those not so good habits. Because if you're filling up on protein, you're filling up on vegetables, you're filling up and drinking lots of water and all this high volume nutrient dense stuff, you don't need to worry about cutting out carbs or eliminating bad food, because you're naturally going to get full on that stuff. And it's going to be less room for those not so good food choices later on. Now, once that becomes a habit and a routine, then we can certainly fine tune it and optimize it further than that. But just start with something. Like, don't overwhelm yourself with too much too soon. Just start with some fundamentals first, and then give yourself permission to take imperfect action and then make it better as you go. And this brings me to the next point that I want to address here. And that is, losing weight is actually easy, but maintaining weight loss is hard. Right? And I'm going to say that again. Losing weight initially is actually quite easy, but maintaining it as a lifestyle, that's where the challenge comes into place. And to prove my point, just think of people you know personally in your own life who've went on a diet and lost weight. Maybe you've done this yourself, where you decided, hey, that's it, I'm going on some diet, insert diet of choice, whether it's a low carb diet, whether it's intermittent fasting, whether it's Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig or South Beach, or insert diet of choice. You follow some particular diet, which ultimately requires restricting calories to some way, shape, or form. So you're in a calorie deficit. You sustain that for a period of time, you lose weight, right? Whether that's exercising more, whether it's eating less, or a combination of both, somehow you go on a weight loss diet and you lose weight. But once that initial motivation wears off, the initial drive that got you to go on the diet to begin with. And then once it's your willpower starts to drain, and everybody has a limit to their willpower. Like, willpower is not an endless resource. It has a limit, right? Everyone has a threshold or a limit to their willpower. Once those things start to happen, the initial motivation starts to dwindle, the willpower starts to dwindle, then very often you fall back into your old habits again. And then once you fall back into your old habits again, guess what happens? You regain the weight, right? Like this is the typical crash diet cycle that we see over and over again, where people will go on a diet. They finally muster up the motivation and then they drastically cut their calories some way, some shape, some form, whether that's cutting carbs, whether it's cutting fat, whether it's cutting out meals. You basically create a calorie deficit. You can sustain that for a while, but once you're in a calorie deficit for a prolonged period of time, what happens? You start to feel hungry. You start to have the cravings, and you feel weak and irritable and hangry and all this kind of stuff. And you're feeling the deprivation of the diet. The cravings start to build. Then what happens? Eventually, sooner or later, in a moment of weakness, you're going to give into those cravings. When you give into those cravings, what happens, right? You end up blowing your diet, right? You have this big, massive binge. And then very often when you binge eat, you're going to rebound and gain a lot of weight back, especially if you are following some sort of low carb diet and then you had a high carb binge, because once you reintroduce carbs back into your system after going low carb for a while, your body's just going to absorb them and balloon up, right? You're going to regain all this weight and it's just going to swell up like a balloon. Like it's quite possible for people to put on 10 plus pounds in the matter of a couple days after going on a low carb diet, because your body just swells up like a puffer fish. And then what happens when you have this big rebound weight gain and you have your big binge and everything else? You're going to feel down on yourself. You're going to feel like crap. And then what do you do after that? Well, you want some comfort food because you want to feel good in the moment, right? You're feeling down. So, hey, I need something that I can rely on that's going to make me feel good. So you go eat some more, right? And then the whole cycle just spirals out of control. And then you end up eating more. You end up gaining more weight. And then all the progress that you initially made is like a fart in the wind that's gone out the window. And then you could stay stuck in this rut for weeks or months or however long it is until you finally muster up the motivation to start another diet. And then the cycle continues on and on and on. This is the crash diet cycle, and it happens to so many people. I mean, I'm willing to bet most of you listening to this have probably gone through some variation of this yourself. So losing weight in the short term, even though it doesn't feel good, it's actually easy. It's simple. It just takes a bit of willpower and grit and determination to restrict yourself. But the thing is you can't live like that forever. Nobody wants to deprive themselves and feel like they're on a diet forever. Like you have to learn how to balance it out and incorporate healthy eating habits and healthy exercise habits so that you actually enjoy the process. And this is the difference between a lifestyle change and a diet. Like anybody can go on a diet and suffer it out in the short term, but very few people have mastered this lifestyle change where they actually enjoy the process. And this is the kicker. We can't suffer it out. We have to learn how to balance it. And again, I mentioned this before, but if I waved a magic wand and said, abracadabra, boom, you've got ripped six-pack abs, you're at your ideal body weight, everything is perfect, right? You're whatever, your men's health cover model physique, you have your ideal fitness goals. If you have that ideal body, but you continue living the life and you have the lifestyle habits that you currently have right now, it's only a matter of time before those lifestyle habits manifest into creating the body that you have right now. Because your body is a product of your habits and your environment. So if you're lean and fit and happy with the way you look, that's because you have the lifestyle and the habits that allows you to maintain a lean, healthy body. If you're overweight and out of shape and you have health problems, that's because you have the lifestyle habits that facilitate that type of body, those type of health problems, and that you're a product of your environment, you're a product of your habits. So instead of thinking of like, what's the best diet and everything else, we need to reprogram the habits and the lifestyle. And this is different than just simply counting calories, tracking macros, and going on some crazy crash diet. It requires a totally different approach. And this is something that we really dive into within the whole Muscle After 40 program. Like we have a full like inner game side of fitness and nutrition, almost like a personal development program geared around fitness and nutrition that helps you to master these lifestyle habits so that this isn't just some quick fix going on a diet program, but it's reprogramming your internal compass, like reprogramming the way you live your life and setting it up so that you start to do the right things automatically without conscious effort and willpower, right? It becomes automatic habits. And this is something that it's not a one and done quick fix. I mean, it's a gradual process that takes time over several months. But the idea is we want to make these marginal gains, like get 1% better each day, right? Not trying to overhaul your entire diet and lifestyle from day one, but just dial it up 1% better each day and then compound that day after day, week after week, month after month. And like by this time next year, you'll be able to look back and say like, holy smokes, look at the transformation that took place. But it didn't feel overwhelming in the process because it was a gradual and progressive change and not trying to force a change too quickly. This is what we need to do is like zoom out and look at the big picture, because who cares if you can starve yourself and like, let's just say you lose 30 pounds in 30 days by going on some crazy restrictive crash diet. Okay, that's wonderful from a weight loss point of view. You lost 30 pounds in 30 days. Woohoo, congratulations. But what happens in 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, right? Most people quickly regain that 30 pounds and probably another 10 or 20 pounds more along with it as time goes on. Unfortunately, most people actually get fatter with every diet they do. Once they go through the full diet cycle of the weight loss and then the rebound weight gain afterwards, they end up gaining more weight with every diet they do. We don't even want to go on a diet per se. We just want to make lifestyle changes so that the way you're living your life facilitates slow, steady progress where you're burning body fat, building lean muscle, improving your body composition, but more importantly, enjoying the process and not just trying to suffer it out with some quick fix Band-Aid solution to drop the weight as quickly as possible. Because again, losing weight is easy. Sustaining it and maintaining it as a lifestyle, that's what's hard. And this brings me up to my next point, and this is a big one for a lot of guys. It's not knowing when to ask for help when you need it, or being too proud to ask for help when you need it. And I'm guilty of this. I mean, I'll be honest. There's a lot of times I say, you know what, I'll figure it out on my own. I don't need anybody's help, right? I'm a one-man show. I'm a lone wolf. You know, I'll tough it out. I'll figure it out, whatever. And I admire that determination, if you will, or stubbornness, or whatever you want to call it. Learning from your own mistakes is the slow way to go about it. And trying to figure stuff out on your own and thinking, I know it all. I just need to do what I already know, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's painfully slow. That is not the quick fix solution. And to kind of put things in perspective, if you really knew what to do, you would have already done it, right? Like that's the truth. If you knew how to get in shape, if you knew how to have a lean, healthy physique and sustain it as a lifestyle, you would have already done it. Because why not? Why would you still be suffering and in a body that you're not happy with and riddled with health problems? If you knew and you had the solution, why wouldn't you do it? So a lot of times people are too proud to ask for help when they need it. And this actually limits their progress. And we kind of downplay it and we think, well, it's not that hard. I know what to do. I just need to eat right and exercise. Like, hey, how hard can it be? I know what to do. But once you start digging under it and you know, peeling back the layers of the onion, if you will, you realize it's not just eat right and exercise. There's a lot more to it than that. And to give you an example, like think of my co-host who normally does these podcasts with me, Jeff Samatero. Like he's a professional drummer. He's been playing drums for over 20 years. He teaches at a music school. He plays in a band, and now he's moving out to California to further his music career so he can get around even better musicians and to up his game to the next level. He knows how to play the drums. He's a teacher himself, but he's still trying to improve because he knows there's always another level. Now, let's just say I'm so stubborn that I say, you know what? I know how to play the drums. I mean, how hard can it be? You just grab a couple drumsticks and you bang on the drums. What do I need a music teacher for? Why do I just... That's how drumming works, isn't it? That analogy, thinking that drumming is simply grabbing a couple sticks and banging on the drums, is the same as thinking getting in shape is just eating right and exercising. Yeah, technically that is all drumming is taking sticks and banging on drums, but there's a lot more to it than that. Again, once you start peeling back the layers, you realize there's timing, there's rhythm, there's all this kind of stuff that goes into play, and how to tune the drums and yada, yada, yada. I mean, there's so much. I mean, I'm not a drummer. I'm not a musician myself, but I'm just saying there's a lot to it. The same applies with fitness and nutrition. Sure, it's eat right and exercise, But how do you go about eating right and exercising? How do you go about it? How do you adjust it for you and your individual situation and tailor it to your specific needs? That's where it gets complicated, and that's where it can get challenging. And this is where having some experts who've been there and done that and knows the way and can show you the way can shortcut the process for you and save you a lot of time and money and frustration. And a lot of guys are too proud to ask for help when needed, right? I see this a lot. And the shortcut to success is to learn from someone who's already done it. Instead of you trying to figure this out through years of trial and error on your own and making a lot of mistakes in the process, having the courage, having the vulnerability or the humility, if you will, to ask for help when you need it and to get guidance is such a powerful skill. And it's amazing. Like when I look at people that I know personally, the ones who are struggling, they're the ones who are trying to do it on their own, and they're saying, you know what, I know what to do. I don't need anybody's help. I'll figure it out on my own, and yada yada yada. Okay, how's that going for you? Oh, well, it's not going that well. And I talked to them, 3-5 years later, and they're still struggling, or in many cases, they're actually worse than when they were before. But the people who do have the courage to reach out and ask for help when they need it, they're following a proven system. They're getting advice. They're having someone hold them accountable step by step throughout the entire process. And they're making slow, steady progress week after week, month after month, year after year. And then when you zoom out, let's just say you zoom out 3 to 5 years from now, the person who tries to figure it out on their own, very often they're stuck in a rut, spinning their wheels, or they're even backtracking and not making any progress, versus someone who's following a proven system and getting the guidance and the help they need. They're making exponential progress. And the difference is like night and day, right? It's amazing the difference when you look at it. And this is the power of having someone in your corner to help you. And this is one of the things that we offer through the whole Muscle After 40 program. Now, obviously, this isn't the ideal program for everybody, but it is for guys over 40, family men, working professionals, people who want to have that work-life balance and are not necessarily looking to be a professional bodybuilder or a competitive athlete, but they just want to be the best version of themselves and to be able to live life to the fullest without having their body holding them back. That's who this program's for. But if maybe you're an athlete and you're looking to get on stage as a competitive bodybuilder or something along those lines, then this maybe isn't the program for you because it's probably not intense enough or specialized enough for your specific situation. But in those situations, then you need to find someone who can help you in those areas. But this is the game changer. It really is. You look at people at the highest level in all sports and activities, they all have coaches. Like Michael Jordan, right? The greatest basketball player of all time. He had coaches. He had basketball coaches. He had strength and conditioning coaches. He had people to help him with his nutrition and his lifestyle. Like he had coaches in all areas. You look at the top bodybuilders, right? People who know how to work out, right? They're already professional bodybuilders at the top of their game. They still have coaches to help them become the best version of themselves. I've been doing this for years. I've competed in bodybuilding. I did 15 shows, I've done it since 1995. I still have a coach to this day. And the reason I have a coach is because it helps to hold me accountable and helps me to focus on what I need to focus on and prioritize. And without having a coach or without having someone to guide you, very often we're left floundering around to our own devices and we don't have that accountability. Like if you just say to yourself, yeah, one of these days I'm going to get around and do that thing, and there's no real deadline or pressure or accountability or someone to follow up, it's so easy to let that slide. It's so easy to disappoint yourself. But if you have someone who you know that, hey, next Tuesday, I'm going to have a coaching call with my coach, and he's going to check in and he's going to ask me, did I do X, Y, and Z, and how am I doing on that? And knowing that I have someone to hold me accountable and someone has some expectations for me, that ensures that I get shit done. Versus if there's no pressure, no deadline, no accountability, then very often you can just say, I'll get around to it when I have time or when I'm not busy. And after the summer is done, I'll do it then. And then, of course, once fall rolls around, you say, yeah, once the kids get settled away in school, then I'll do it then. And then, we're getting close to the holidays. Yeah, once New Year comes around, then I'll get around and do it then. And of course, New Year comes around and it's winter time. You're like, I don't want to do anything in the winter time. Once spring rolls around, then I'll get around and do it then. You'll never get shit done if you're always procrastinating and there's nobody to hold you accountable to make sure that you're doing what you know you should do. But having a coach and someone who's going to guide you along the way and not just hold you accountable, but can steer you away from pitfalls and mistakes. Someone who knows what to do and guide you to where you need to go versus just winging it on your own and floundering around and hoping for the best, right? That's the way most people approach their fitness and nutrition. And I hope it's going to work. I'm going to give it a shot and try it out and hope and pray that it's going to work. And we know the results of that. It rarely does. But when you have a proven system and someone to guide you through that step by step, it's amazing the progress you can make. That's probably hands down. If you're looking for the shortcut, that is it right there, is having someone to guide you through the whole process in real time. It'll save you so much time, money, frustration, and it ensures that you're on the right path to making progress versus floundering around and being stuck in a rut. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Podcast. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the podcast, and if you know someone who could benefit from today's episode, please feel free to share it with them. I mean, if you could help us to spread the word, that's going to help to get this message out there and allow us to create more content like this and reach more people and just create that positive impact all around. And if you would like some help with your own fitness goals, maybe it's building muscle, losing fat, improving your health, getting in your best shape, if you would like some help with that, then feel free to reach out to me. I have my contact information down in the show notes below, and you can book in for a free one-on-one strategy session coaching call with me, and we can discuss a realistic action plan that's right for you. And if I feel that you're a good fit, I may invite you to come on board and join our VIP coaching program. And if it's not a good fit and I feel that I'm not the right person to help you, then I'm not going to give you hype or BS, but I will point you in the right direction to somebody who can help you. I mean, I've got a large network of people in the fitness industry, so if I don't feel that you're a good fit for our coaching program or that I can help you, I'll be able to point you in the right direction to somebody who can. So either way, at the end of your free strategy session coaching call, you'll walk away with better insights on what you need to do next in order to reach your health and fitness goals. So that clues it up for today's episode, and we'll be back again next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time with another episode of the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Podcast. Take care, over and out.